This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
What's up, Detroit sports fans? Welcome to the Fan Report, a show made by fans for fans, powered by the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. I'm Nick, and joining me is Andrew's going to give us this week's topics.
Well, Dan Wetzel of Wetzel's Pretzels, Yahoo Sports, got an article said the Pistons have done an all-time great thing in the NBA. We'll tell you about that. And the Lions continue investing in their offensive line. Good move, bad move. We'll discuss it. It's Fan Report.
Are you a Wetzel's Pretzels or an Auntie Anne's fan?
You know, I've always not really cared. It's whatever's available. But if they're both sitting next to each other, I guess I gravitate towards Auntie Anne's. But I don't think I actually have a preference. I don't think I've had either of them enough to actually compare.
See me, I'm an Auntie Anne's truther. I will 98 times out of 100 go with Auntie Anne's over Wetzel's Pretzels, without even giving it a second thought. I can't really give you any reason as to why, though. I just do. I mean, maybe I just feel like
Wetzel's
the
Pretzels
Auntie
enough
Anne's
to really compare it to Auntie Anne's has been predominantly. There's only one mall I know of in the area that I think even has Wetzel's Pretzels. So,
what mall is that?
GLC, Village Crossing.
They have a Wetzel's Pretzels there?
Well, last I checked.
I haven't been there in a hot minute, so I don't know. And when I'm there, I'm not really staring down the Wetzel's Pretzels to try to find it. But
yeah, because there's Cinnabon. We don't need to worry about Wetzel's Pretzels.
Oh God! Anytime I walk down that hall, I just gravitate towards the Cinnabon.
It's a test of the will, man.
It really is, because for some reason, every single time I walk by that Cinnabon, I'm always because you know how it's on an angle. Mm-hmm. I'm always walking down the hallway where I have to turn around to see the Cinnabon, but I smell it first, and I immediately do a curl route. Immediately do a curl route and just kind of stare for a minute and try to make up my mind whether or not I am going to get Cinnabon that day.
It's real hard to resist.
It really is. It, without a doubt, is. I love Cinnabon.
By the way, it looks like there is no longer a Wetzel's Pretzels in Village Crossing.
Really? Okay, we have confirmed this. Is there a
only
Wetzel's Pretzels within a 5-county radius?
The closest Wetzel's Pretzels is in Granville.
What? Where the hell is Granville?
Wait, that's not right. Because where it's pointing to, that must be a close. It's like a black marker. It's pointing to one. It's pointing to the fact that there's one in 12 Oaks. There is not one in 12 Oaks. I can tell that right now.
I think there used to be. I'm pretty sure there used to be. I don't think there is anymore, though. I think that's been overtaken by TCBY or whatever that cookie company is or something. I think there used to be a Wetzel's Pretzels at 12 Oaks, though. I haven't been to 12 Oaks in a long time, though.
Yeah, there's 2 pins in the map, but there's only one actually listed in the store locator list, and it's in Granville, which is out in near Grand Rapids.
Okay, well, that isn't exactly close.
No, not at all. But if you really had a craving for Wetzel's Pretzels, that's a 2.5-hour drive. You can make it.
Yeah. So now that we got the really serious part of the conversation out of the way.
And we are not sponsored by Wetzel's Pretzels. We want to get that out there.
Or Auntie Anne's. Unless, they wanted to slide in the DMs. I mean, I ain't going to say no, but
I don't know, every time I think of Wetzel's Pretzels, I think of Workaholics, where there's one scene where I don't remember why they were discussing Wetzel's Pretzels, but they brought it up, and then Blake out of nowhere goes, "It making me Wetzels," and that's that voice just pops in my head anytime I hear Wetzel's Pretzels. Oh man!
So I really don't have any fond memories of Wetzel's Pretzels. I don't think I have any fond memories of pretzels in general. I just eat them. I like Auntie Anne's. I like soft pretzels.
I'm not going to sit and act like Auntie Anne's is the king of pretzels. I feel like they could easily be overtaken. I just feel like they've saturated.
I don't know. They're pretty damn good. It's tough to beat an Auntie Anne's pretzel.
The only fond pretzel memories I have when Sam's Club or Costco used to sell the pretzels in the little food area. Their pretzels used to be real good.
I can't say that I've ever had one.
They stopped doing those in favor of the churros. But
well, you can't go wrong with a good churro.
Yeah.
What is the greatest hot snack food or snack bar food? What is the greatest snack bar food out there?
It's a broad. Because you said hot, I was immediately going to say Cinnabon. It's a cinnamon roll.
Well, is that really a snack bar food?
That's what I'm saying. Then you said snack bar, and I'm like, I guess I don't know what like. So like, what would you consider snack bar food?
Say you're at like a local hockey rink. And you want something, you're watching your cousin play or your brother play, and you want something from the snack bar. So, I mean, you go, you got like popcorn.
Yeah, I always gravitate towards
like
popcorn
a walking
or a hot
taco, a hot dog, maybe if they have them. You know, sometimes they got a slice of pizza or a pretzel or something. For me, honest to God, it's probably either a pretzel or the popcorn.
Because for me, what makes a really good snack food is one that's satisfying, but at the same time, I'm not sacrificing cleanliness or mobility. That's very important to me when I am out in public at a place like a sporting event, for example. I want to not have to worry about getting shell over my face, and I want to be able to walk around and still enjoy my food. And I can't do that with a plate of nachos or chicken tenders on me.
No, you can't. I mean, you could do it with a walking taco. Yeah. That's just like a bag of Fritos or whatever and a fork.
Well, that gets messy.
It can.
It can. If you're a sloppy eater, it can.
Yes. If you're not the most coordinated person in the world, yes, it can get sloppy. For me, it's definitely either a pretzel or popcorn. And the reason I say popcorn is, one, I'm a huge popcorn fan. You know this very well. Two, when it comes to the popcorn, I kind of have to be in the mood for like extra salty popcorn, because you know damn well the popcorn that comes out at snack bars is like quadruple the salt of anywhere else.
It's like, let's add butter and let's mix the salt into the butter, make it some extra salty butter.
Exactly.
And then add some salt on top of it.
Which, don't get me wrong, it's really good.
Oh, yeah.
But my God, is it salty. So you got to be in the mood for it. But a soft pretzel, you can never go wrong with at all. We have just totally derailed.
Now you're making me think about Imagine and getting popcorn. And like,
you know what? I'm curious because we obviously always get the free popcorn buckets, right?
Yeah.
Are they going to do anything to reimburse the people that only got like a month of the last free popcorn bucket? That was supposed to last you like 9 months?
They put it on hold, but I think they had already started it up once movie theaters opened back up again.
Are they letting you use the same bucket?
Yeah, but like, I don't know how. We probably only have like a month left on it at this point.
All right, fair enough. Like I guess, whatever. I'm assuming because of COVID, they don't want you bringing the bucket in or something.
Yeah, I haven't gone, so I
haven't either. And that's one of the things I really miss doing is going to a movie. Like you know, anybody who's been a fan of our show going back to the live show is we're really big into movies, and we always have been. We do a lot of movie reviews and discuss a lot of movie news. So you and I would go to the movies at least 2 to 3 times a month, if not more. Yeah. So
it does. As I've been saying, like when you go from going at least once a week, like I would, and then to just not going to the movies for over a year, you have withdrawals.
You do. It makes you yearn for it. You kind of feel like you haven't eaten in a while. As weird as that sounds, like it just you want it and you just want to go back so bad, but obviously you're not allowed to.
And we've talked about like comparing the home theater experience to like the movie theater experience, and I think what I've found lately is just at home, I don't have as much of an urge to watch the new releases. Like they have to be ones I actually really want to see.
Right.
I have a lower threshold when going to the theater versus watching it at home. It's weird.
I agree with you, which for most people would probably be the opposite.
Yeah. Like I probably would have watched a Mortal Kombat movie in theaters. I probably would have gone and watched it.
I probably would have too. I have no desire.
Care to watch it.
I have zero desire. Even if I've heard that it's actually pretty good, I have zero desire to go watch it or to watch it at home. But if it were out in theaters, I probably would have gone to see it. And I don't know if it's like the theater experience to me just makes movies better than they probably are.
It's that watching, like I think one crucial element that we miss out on is watching it with friends. That's a big one. Crucial element.
At this point, we can with friends now, but that is definitely a big one. There is something to be said about going to the movies with a friend or multiple friends and shooting the shit with them, having a beer or two before and after, and getting some popcorn and laughing your asses off, or getting jump scared with friends. Yeah. There's something to be said about that for sure.
Like, I'm hyped for the new Conjuring movie to come out in a month, but like, it's not going to be as fun just sitting watching it with myself.
No, absolutely not. Is that actually going to get released in theaters?
HBO Max.
That's it?
Yeah, because remember, all Warner Brothers releases are going through HBO Max.
That's right. They're not doing a simultaneous release?
Yeah, it's going to be a simultaneous release, but it's coming out on HBO Max. Like, at the same time.
Well, then why don't we go watch it in a theater?
We could. I want to see that new Jason Statham movie, the Jason Statham Guy Ritchie movie that just came out, Wrath of Man. That's what I want to see right now.
The what?
Hey, officially, Wrath of Man. Jason Statham, Guy Ritchie directed.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I had heard about that. That does actually look pretty damn good.
I'm officially fully vaccinated by next week. So
I mean, I have been since like
that whole like
January.
2-week latency period, which I still don't fully understand because I always thought that when you get sick, that is the immune response, and then once that immune response is over, then your body has reacted to the vaccine. I still don't understand the 2 weeks.
No, because the antibodies still got to fully develop, and I'm not an epidemiologist or a doctor. Let's just go with that. But the antibodies still have to fully get through your body, and you have to have a full immune response, and then recovery from the immune response, and then you're not. I can't say quite immune, but you are far more resistant to the virus at that point. But that's just how it's been explained to me. Again, I am not a doctor. I don't claim to be one. I am not an epidemiologist. I'm not an expert on infectious diseases.
So let's get into this Pistons stuff, though. As this recording, the Pistons have just lost probably the most crucial game of the last 10 years for the Pistons. Losing to the Timberwolves.
This game tonight that we lost was quite possibly the most important game in the last, I'd say, at least 5 years in Pistons recent history.
I just said 10 years because I don't even count the games because
10
we're never
years.
going to do anything. So.
10 years. I'm fine with that. I was going to say 10 years, but I felt like I would get yelled at for it.
Honestly, it's probably even more. It's probably the most important game since Chauncey left. It's like,
I completely agree. Like it was a game that like if they had won this game, it easily could have changed the course of their future for the next 5 years at least. Like, say you miss out on a guy like Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, or Evan Mobley or Cade Cunningham because you would have won this game. And that player doesn't become a star and the others do. I mean, that easily changes the course of your franchise for probably longer than the next 5 years. So
now we're sitting again second to last place right now. We're sitting at the second best odds. Well, the best odds, but the number 2 odds in the lottery. 1.5 games ahead of the Thunder, ahead of the Cavs, a full 2 games ahead of the Magic, and 2.5 games ahead of the Timberwolves. I think as things shake out, I'd have to look at the rest of the team's schedules, but I think we may have a cushion. We only have 2 games left in the season. We may have a cushion to lose one of them, but to win one of them, but that might be skirting it close. I'd rather just lose them both and just call it a season. I think we got the Heat, and who else do we have?
So with the Cavs having lost their last game, I think we are a game and a half.
Yeah, we're a game and a half ahead of both the Cavs and the Thunder.
Yes, so technically speaking, I think, yes, we could win one of these games. I don't like it because I believe in the case of the Cavs, they have the game in hand on us. So
yeah, that was the day I was going to come on here and declare the tank dead if we didn't have NFL draft talk to talk about. But boy, they turned it around in the last stretch here. But yeah, the Nuggets and the Heat are who we have left.
Which are 2 games that, for all intents and purposes, they should lose.
Yeah.
If they win one of those games, I'll probably be pretty pissed.
And I thought we should lose to the Grizzlies, a team fighting for a playoff spot, but they decided to not show up.
Yeah, well. Tonight's loss was probably the best loss this franchise has had ever, at least in my lifetime. And by that I mean it puts you in the driver's seat to get yourself the best odds at a top 3 at the number 1 pick, at getting a potential cornerstone talent in Cade Cunningham. And at worst, if you hold your position here, at worst, you are getting one of Cade Cunningham, Jalen Green, Jalen Suggs, or Evan Mobley. And you and I both have said we are happy with any of those 4. Obviously, we have a number 1, but we're happy with any of those 4. It's when you drop to 5, that's where things start to get a little murky there with Kumingas, and the list goes on. But just lose 2 more. That's all you need. Yeah. Just lose 2 more.
Now, obviously, there's still a chance. Like, even at number 2, you can still drop to 5 or even 6.
I thought you couldn't drop more than 3 spots.
No, so the way it works is all 3 of the top 3 teams have the exact same odds for 1 through 4. And then the number 1, the worst team has like the rest of their odds all fall at number 5. So the worst thing goes 5. The second team can go to 5 or 6. The third team can drop to 5, 6, or 7. The fourth team can drop to 5, 6, so on and so forth.
Okay.
So even Houston can drop all the way to 5. And I think if they drop to 5, they lose their pick. So
yikes.
I think if they fall to 4, they lose their pick even.
Who would they lose that pick to?
I believe Golden State.
Golden State that was Minnesota that had the top 3 protected, not Houston.
Minnesota also, if they fall out of
Minnesota, if they top 3.
They lose theirs to OKC if they fall to the top 3.
I could have sworn theirs was Golden State.
So two teams in this lottery have the potential to, at least 2 teams in this top end of the lottery have the potential to lose their pick entirely based on how the balls fall. But anyway, I think Dan Wetzel kind of put it perfectly in terms of this game when he said, one team will win the game, the other will be celebrating afterwards.
Right.
Thank God we're the ones celebrating afterwards. But so basically Dan Wetzel put on an article saying the Pistons are pulling off possibly one of the all-time great tank jobs.
So the Wolves pick goes to Golden State if it's not top 3. If it's top 3, it stays with Minnesota.
The Rockets goes to OKC then?
I'm assuming so.
Yeah, because I know one of them goes to OKC. Because I just saw a mock that had OKC getting 2 top 5 picks this year, and it pissed me off. But anyway, so he said the Pistons are possibly pulling off one of the all-time great tank jobs in history. And he goes on to elaborate. Like, this is how highly he views what the Pistons have done this season. He said it's more than just a traditional trek to the basement season. It might place them second to whomever hoists the Larry O'Brien trophy in accomplishing pretty much all its reasonable objectives for the season. Just on that alone, without me elaborating any further, what are your thoughts on that statement?
Reread that statement.
He said, this is more than just a traditional trek to the basement season for Detroit. And then I quote, it might place them second to whomever actually hoists the Larry O'Brien trophy in accomplishing pretty much all of its reasonable expectations going into the season.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that's exaggerating, but is very good writing.
Yeah.
It's titillating for sure. It's intriguing. I'm going to say no because this team had other expectations than tank to the bottom. I mean,
it was develop talent and tank, right?
And some of the talent they did develop, some of the talent they did not. Sekou continues to not really develop. Granted, he has been a little bit better as of late. Killian Hayes, we didn't really get to see too much. And at times wasn't great when we did get to see him. And at times he looked okay. Sadiq Bey and Isaiah Stewart. Isaiah Stewart's really kind of fallen off later on in the year. Might have kind of hit a rookie wall. But Sadiq Bey...
But you know what he has done later in the year? He started raining them threes.
He has.
And I've been loving it.
Sometimes to not great consistency, but he's willing to shoot them, and that's exciting. He's also willing to pump fake from outside, get someone to jump, and then he drives the lane, and it looks nasty.
That's the key thing, is it's working. Like, he's gotten dangerous from outside where the pump is working.
Okay, it worked once.
No, it's been working. Teams are now respecting the beef stew 3-pointer.
Sadiq Bey, for the most part, has been good to great at times. Like, at times, he's looked like an absolute stud. And at times, he's not looked so great, but that's usually when he has an off shooting night. He's developed pretty nicely. I'm curious to see where his ceiling actually is because I think his ceiling is a little bit higher than we had expected. But, I mean, yes, I do think they accomplished most goals this year. I do. I think that there's still some boxes left unchecked. You still don't necessarily know who your point guard of the future is, concretely speaking. You were hoping to have figured that answer out right now or by now. As weird as it sounds, I think the fit of Jeremy Grant in the future of this franchise still is kind of up in the air a little bit. I think there's still some potential for a trade there, that there's a question mark with him. Does Isaiah Stewart have the capability of becoming your stronghold center that plays 30-plus minutes a game? That's another question mark. But that one, I don't think they expected to get this year. Either way, though, I still think there's some unanswered questions and maybe even more questions that have come up than we had expected. But for the most part, I do think they accomplished a lot. They managed to put themselves in a situation where competitive for the most part in games. I mean, they were a very competitive team much of the year, and they managed to lose games, which fit our expectations. We expected this team to play their hearts out, be close in a lot of games, and some nights not so great, but lose. We wanted them to compete and then just lose, and that's what we said from the very beginning, and that's what they've done this year. I mean, they're a team that's lost 50 games.
From my perspective, I mean, I won't commit to quite the level of hyperbole that Wetzel's putting out there, but I actually do think that we've accomplished, I think, everything we sought to do this season, and probably even and some, because to me, Sadiq Bey has exceeded expectations.
I'll agree with that.
He's already more than what I thought he was going to be. Isaiah Stewart has already exceeded my expectations. Saban Lee.
Your expectations, not necessarily some of the front office's expectations, but he's exceeded our expectations because we didn't really have much for him going in.
Yeah, and then Saban Lee has already exceeded my expectations.
Again, another situation where there was none.
Yeah. Jeremy Grant showed another level that we'd never seen from him. He's proven his contract.
We expected that, though. We expected him taking on a bigger role to take a step up and be the guy that we expected. Yeah. So he's met that.
So it's you have a lot of things hitting all at once.
You're still missing a big one, and which is where I still have my biggest question mark is you don't know who the answer is at point guard.
Well, I don't think you were ever going to know this season. Killian Hayes is an international prospect.
I think it's every bit as much. I would argue it's every bit as much of a question mark as it was going into the draft last year.
I wouldn't go that far.
I would, because we did not really see enough of Killian Hayes to say it. This is our point guard of the future, and we were hoping to see a glimpse of that this year, and we did not.
No, I'm not saying that you've seen enough to immediately say it's the point guard of the future, but I do think that there's no longer that giant question mark at the position because you're like, this is a guy we're testing out for the next couple of years. He doesn't look like a complete bust.
But he doesn't look like a success either. Not yet, anyways. I'm not saying he's a bust. This is the guy
we're running for the next couple of years, and we're going to see what he develops into.
My point is that question mark is still very large at the point guard position, if not even larger than it was because of the emergence of guys like Saban Lee, Frank Jackson, and potentially a guy in this draft, considering we are probably still going after a guard. The question mark still is big time there at the point guard position. I was hoping and expecting Killian Hayes to show some serious glimpses of him being the guy that can be our point guard of the future. I'm not necessarily saying he's got to be a star or that he's showing glimpses of being a star, but he hasn't really shown much of being able to be an everyday point guard, an everyday starting point guard in this league, and that's what we kind of drafted him to be. If you're drafting a guy in the top 10, you're drafting him to be your everyday starting point guard in this league, and he hasn't shown an ability to do that just yet. That's where I say the question mark, and that's where the one major thing I would say still isn't answered for the Pistons and didn't quite meet the expectations because we haven't seen it. Now, most of that was due to the hip injury. It was. He didn't really get enough run, but in a lot of games where he did get the run and when he was seen in long stretches of games, he showed a lot of struggle. And it's a lot of growing pains, and we've seen some improvement in some nights. I mean, his game with the Bulls or against the Bulls looked fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what you hope to get out of a guy like that. And if you're able to get that consistently, well, you got a star on your hands. But that's the one game I can point out this year where he's looked like, hey, this is the real deal. And one game ain't enough of a sample size.
That's a
Danny Green's
take.
had a 30-point game in his career, I believe. So
that's a solid side take is just how much of a 9-day difference it's been pre-injury versus post-injury, especially now, even later in the season, like these last couple of weeks, he's just looked a lot more comfortable out there. He's been a lot more decisive, playing his own game, playing more freely, and that was one of my major criticisms of him the first couple of weeks of the season was he's just too hesitant and he doesn't look comfortable out there yet. And you at least have that behind him. Obviously, there's a lot to improve about his game, but I do think that he's made significant strides just in the small portion of year one that he did play.
In certain aspects, yes, I'll agree with you. In other aspects, I still saw a lot of the mistakes that he made early in the year.
Obviously, he's still making mistakes.
Well, I mean, some of the ones that I feel like he should have been able to kind of battle through, because it's not necessarily ones that you need to be in the game to get. You know, the ones where, like, the mistakes of not opening your eyes to what the defense is giving you. That's something you can learn while sitting on the bench. And sitting on the sidelines and seeing that, they're giving him this, they're allowing him to take the lane on him. They're allowing him to get penetration. He still isn't quite able to recognize that and almost zeroes in and tunnel visions towards making the extra pass or making a pass as opposed to, hey, you've got a 15-foot jumper wide open to you. Or you've got the lane given to you. Take it.
I 100% agree with that. And that's actually something that's just now developing in the last couple of games. We'll see if he actually builds on that because now the season's coming to an end, and we'll see how that actually, if that continues in the next year. But I 100% agree. That's probably been the biggest issue with Killian Hayes.
Oh, it absolutely has been the biggest issue.
Is not taking what the defense gives him.
And that's one of the things that if he's not able to fix and develop, he won't succeed in this league. Like, that is one of the most important things you have to develop as a point guard, is being able to take what the defense is giving you. And if you can't do it, you will never be successful in this league, no question. But, so I was hoping to see him fix some of that during, understand and learn some of that during the time off and getting to sit down and see, okay, defenses are doing this and this. This is what I got to do. And he's just not been able to get that recognition just yet. So that's something that I'm going to be paying big time attention to going into early next year, is whether or not this guy can recognize what's in front of him. Then he's also got to get the shot to fall. He's got to get the shot to fall.
Yeah, I agree.
If he can't develop a shot, yikes.
We've driven a little bit too far in the rabbit hole here, so let's reel it back. So this is what Dan Wetzel had to say as to why he regards this Pistons season so highly. And he said, and I quote, "Consider Detroit might execute the reverse perfect season by," and then he gives 3 reasons. 1, losing enough games to secure the best possible odds to win the NBA draft lottery. And obviously that means falling in between the bottom 3, you secure the best possible odds to win. 2, clear out expensive veterans and develop a trio of impressive rookie talent and potential long-term starters while still losing enough games to secure the best possible odds to win the lottery. And then 3, do it during a pandemic. This is one thing we weren't considering. Do it during a pandemic when no one is allowed to attend your games in the first place, so you're not boring season ticket holders.
Don't get me wrong. They've done an absolutely, and Troy Weaver is the number one reason for this, but they've done an absolutely fantastic job at this tank. Yeah. Like, the best. Not can't quite say the best, but damn near close. Like, it's been damn near perfection. Perfection, in all reality, would be the 3 rookies you have just look like absolute superstars, and hey, we found our guys already. But, by the way, we're still getting a number 1 pick.
And I think the only thing we didn't discuss is, and I completely forgot to bring this up to you, just the fact that he did just nuke the entire roster in one season. Sekou Doumbouya
is the longest tenured Piston. He's 20 years old. Yeah. I mean, he did nuke the entire roster in 1 year. I still would say that I think there may be one other team that's executed the tank job and maybe slightly ahead of you in the curve in their rebuild. And I personally believe it's probably the Houston Rockets. The one thing holding them back, in my opinion, is John Wall and his contract.
So he actually touches on that. Let me give you what he says real quick. He said, Houston, for example, has just 16 victories and thus has done a better job of losing games in an effort to improve draft odds. The Rockets didn't do it, however, while starting their rebuild the way Detroit has. What do you think of that?
While starting their rebuild while Detroit has.
The way Detroit has. So, like, we've already kicked off our rebuild while the Rockets have done it mid-tear down right now. They're not in rebuild mode. They're still tearing down. They're still in the process of tearing down the roster and about to kick off a rebuild.
I 100% disagree with that.
Really? Why?
Because the Rockets have already done their teardown and are on their way back up. And the reason I say that is because look at the talent that they've actually already acquired, some of which is locked in and very young.
I'm talking Kevin Porter, Jayshawn Tate, Kenyon Martin
Wood.
Jr., Christian Wood.
Yes. They've already got some good talent on the roster that is very young. Christian Wood probably being the premier talent of that, who is locked in, who his contract already looks very cheap. Christian Wood's better than anybody you have on your roster right now, outside of maybe Jeremy Grant.
Yeah.
Kevin Porter Jr. has looked really freaking good as of late.
Remember when I was yelling for the Pistons to sign him when he got
cut? Kenyon Martin Jr. has come on in a big way as of late. And a lot of these guys are getting opportunity due to guys sitting out or whatever. But they also have a lot of money coming off the books this year. Olynyk's 12 mil comes off. Dante Exum's almost 10 mil comes off. Avery Bradley's team option for 6 mil comes off. DJ Wilson comes off for 4.5 mil. They got a lot of money coming off the books. Yeah. Yes, they still have John Wall's massive abomination of a contract, but I think that's probably going to be movable because
And they still
after
got to
this
move
year,
Oladipo too, probably.
it's 1-1. Oladipo's already been moved. They traded him to Miami.
I forgot about that. I totally forgot about that.
So their teardown is already, and also, by the way, Kyrie Thomas, who's on a vet min, has, and
Oh yeah, he's looking good now too.
yeah, and he's probably going to get a re-signing because of it, because he's had 3 straight games of 20-plus points.
I remember we were live streaming that draft, and we were hype as hell when we took Kyrie Thomas. But
Absolutely.
didn't
Now,
really
they do have a decent amount of dead money, but a lot of it comes off the books this year. Next year, dead money, they will have $122,000. That means a reduction of 2, 4.5, 6, 7.5, almost $8 million in dead money comes off the books for them this year, at the end of this year.
And when's John Wall's contract done?
He's on a 1-1 after this year.
After this year.
So-
is when the 1-1 starts. So
Yes,
he's
is
still
when the 1-1
guaranteed for
starts.
next year also.
With a player
And then- okay.
option for the following year. But
She'll
I think
probably pick up.
it's for $47 million, I would almost guarantee it. But I personally think that he's probably movable at the age of 30, probably 31 at that point, to a team that wants to win. I think he could probably move that contract. If teams are willing to pay for Blake,
Are you saying you'd rather be in the Rockets position now than the Pistons?
taking it in its entirety with who's running the show, the coaching, no. Because I think Dwayne Casey's got better talent development. I think Troy Weaver is
I've been really impressed with that.
I have two.
I was so wrong when we brought Casey in because I remember I didn't want him because I thought he was going to be Stan Van Gundy 2.0. And I could not have been more wrong about that.
This honestly almost feels like a Rick Carlisle 2.0 situation. Where you got a guy that comes in and gets the team together, and then he can't quite get him over the top, and then your next guy does. I feel it. I do. Because he wasn't able to get the Raptors over the top.
Yeah.
And then Nick Nurse comes in, boom, they win a title. But I don't know. I feel it. But so, like,
I also wonder how much that was Nick Nurse versus how much that was Kawhi Leonard coming in.
that's very true. In terms of the talent on the roster, I mean, we can go guy by guy here.
We don't have to. I don't want to dive too deep.
No, we don't have to. I mean,
yeah.
obviously, the best talent on the Rockets roster is Christian Wood, a guy that we had here and should have kept. He's 25 and is on a very cheap contract for what he gives you in 13.5 mil, 14 mil in the final year in 2022, 2023. That's pretty damn good. It's a lot cheaper than Jeremy Grant. He gives you roughly the same, if not better numbers than Jeremy Grant, and he's younger than Jeremy Grant as well. And then beyond that, you're looking at Kevin Porter Jr. and Kenyon Martin Jr. as being the next two guys. I might take Sadiq Bey over those two guys, but I'd probably put them next to, well, at least Kevin Porter Jr. over Isaiah Stewart, then Isaiah Stewart. And then I'd probably go, it doesn't even matter. It's a wash at that point. But I'd probably still take the Pistons situation. That's, that may be because I'm a homer or whatever, fine. But in terms of the total package, I like what the Pistons have in their front office, at the coaching level, as well as a lot of the talent on the roster. I think they're developing it in the right way. I just feel like the Rockets, their tank job happened arguably in a shorter time frame. Because
they weren't tanking until they got rid of Harden.
Right. Not even that. You could argue that their tank job started at the trade deadline this year because they got rid of Oladipo. They got rid of they just depleted their entire roster, basically told John Wall to take a walk. So you could argue that they started their rebuild this year, during the season. And
they got aggressive with their tank.
Yes. And
they ripped off 20 in a row.
Right. And it worked. And that's where I'd say, okay, maybe the Rockets are doing this rebuild every bit as well as the Pistons, if not a little bit better, because they were able to tear down so quickly. And now they've got the best odds. Granted, you have the same odds, but the best odds of the number one overall pick, and it's sure seeming likely that they're going to get him. I'd be surprised if they don't at this point.
But boy, those tables flip if the Rockets have bad luck in the lottery and then end up losing their pick. Then there's something way behind schedule.
I was actually looking at that.
I think it's if they drop to 4, they lose their pick. It's top 3 protected. I think if they drop to 4, they lose it.
Hang on. The Houston Rockets' first round pick has the right to be swapped with the Oklahoma City Thunder because of their Russell Westbrook trade. That sent the Miami Heat's 2021 first round pick to Oklahoma City. The Rockets have a top 4 protection on their 2021 first round pick. So it has to go to 5 for them to lose it. So they only one spot in there where they are in the lottery can they lose that pick.
And guess what? There's a 48% chance they land there.
Right, there is.
The lottery odds are so damn weird.
The way the NBA does the draft lottery is garbage. The draft lottery as a whole for all sports is garbage.
We have a 47.8% chance landing in the 5 or 6 spot. Cleveland's got 47.8% chance landing 5, 6, or 7. Like, the odds are only slightly for the bad teams, the odds are only slightly in favor of you actually landing in the top 3, 4.
Right.
So it's weird.
It is weird, and it's kind of stupid. Personally, I believe if you're that bad, you shouldn't be allowed to fall more than 2 spots. Mm-hmm. But that's just me.
No, I agree.
I think if you are the worst team in the league, lowest you can go is 3, and keep going down the list.
I agree, because it still takes a little bit of power out of the tank.
Right.
While at the same time not punishing legitimately bad teams.
Exactly. But either way, I think you've got 2 teams that are very actively tanking. Mm-hmm. Both of them seemingly doing it in very quick fashion. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, there's a lot of similarities between the two in all reality. I mean, you have already what's probably a cornerstone piece signed under contract on each roster in Christian Wood and Jeremy Grant. You've got young talent on both rosters on rookie deals in Kevin Porter Jr., Kenyon Martin Jr., and Sadiq Bey, Isaiah Stewart, Killian Hayes. I mean, you have all of that already attached to each team. So there is a lot of positives to look at. Now, I can't sit here and break down the Houston Rockets talent development because I don't pay enough attention to the Houston Rockets, but I can break down the Pistons talent development. It's looked pretty damn good.
No, I agree. Not to keep driving into the point, but so I guess the my general take on the article as a whole, I'm just really happy that a national writer like Dan Wetzel is giving some respect to the Pistons tank here.
I mean, they've done an absolutely masterful job. It's taken them 1 year, and you've already bottomed out, and you're on your way back, and This draft is where things can begin to put you on your way back up. You're not quite there. You've got to get there using this draft, and then you can go back on your way up.
If you land one of those generational talents, not to hammer that word again, but if you land one of those talents in the top 4, I'd say.
And they pan out.
Oh, yeah, and they pan out. I think you jumpstart.
Pistons fans have very vivid memories of a generational talent in the top 3 of a draft not quite working out.
I think the guys in the top 4 of this draft have the ceiling to jumpstart a rebuild.
Would you argue that this is the best top 4 in a draft since LeBron's draft?
I think you can make a very solid argument for that.
I think you could too. I'm not going to lie to you. Mm-hmm. I know people threw out Lonzo's draft. I know people threw out LaMelo's draft, Zion's draft, but this one you can definitely make a real solid argument. Granted, we don't have that quite otherworldly talent like LeBron. Mm-hmm. You know, Cade Cunningham's good, but he ain't that good.
Yeah.
But in terms of the level playing field of the top 4 guys, yes, there's a clear number 1, but 2, 3, and 4 sure are pretty even.
Yeah, I remember last draft I was this high on at least the top end of it was the Wiggins Jabari Parker draft, and boy, did that not turn out the way I thought it was going to turn out. I thought Wiggins Jabari Parker were both going to be coming in. I thought they were both going to be the future of the league. Jabari Parker pretty much flamed out real quick, and Wiggins has just never reached the level of potential that I thought he was capable of. He's solid, and that's about it. But
he
anyway.
Probably is kind of like you. Like, I had such high expectation for him. He probably is one of the biggest disappointments I've ever closely watched because he looked so damn good. He looked like such a sure thing. Maybe who was the guy that we were gonna take? Justice Winslow was another one that I was really high.
Oh yeah, I remember you were really high on Justice Winslow.
And
turns out we were both wrong. We should take a Devin Booker.
I know. Oh man.
But I have one more Pistons question for you before we move on to the Lions here. Just looking at the rookies going into the offseason, so we're only a couple games out from the offseason here. If you're Dwayne Casey, what's one thing you give each rookie to focus on in terms of part of their game to focus on this offseason?
One thing I give to each rookie for them to focus on. For Isaiah Stewart, it's going to be continuing to develop his range and his ability to make a play happen off the dribble starting from the perimeter. And we've seen glimpses of it. And the more he can develop that range, the more lethal that pump and dribble drive becomes.
I'm right there with you on Isaiah Stewart. Right there
because
with you.
that right there, that move in particular takes you from a good to really good big man to elite tier big man.
Yep.
If you can step out to the three and hit it with a consistency and teams start to respect that, the floor becomes wide open, wide open, and you can do a whole hell of a lot. And then if you can develop a playmaking aspect to your game, oh man.
And I tell you, for both Killian Hayes and Saban Lee, I just put them both in shooting drills all summer.
Shooting drills and vision drills is what I do. I'd put, especially Killian, I would put him in a drill that just forces him to recognize, and we used to do this a lot.
I wouldn't call it so much vision as decision making, because he sees the floor real well.
That's fine. Decision making drill, vision as a point. I mean, like recognition, a recognition drill where the drill where, and this is more elementary speaking, but where a play, you'll start the play in slow motion and you'll make the defense do a certain thing, and then the coach stops the play. All right, what do you see? And then he's got to pick out what he's supposed to do.
The old CYO drill.
Yes. Like that, he's the recognition drills, and then obviously the shooting drills. He's just got to get that shot together. And Saban Lee, yeah, shooting drill, 100%. Sadiq Bey, I don't know. He's probably the toughest one because there's so many.
I think for me, it'd be athleticism. Work on your athleticism. It might not be something you can actually
teach, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like we just talked about, Isaiah, having Isaiah Stewart add more athletic moves to his repertoire. But like Sadiq Bey, I don't know what it is. Maybe.
See, the difference with Isaiah Stewart adding athletic moves to his repertoire, it's already based in the fact that he has the athleticism to do them. He's already an extremely athletic player with a ton of bounce and a ton of ability to move. Sadiq doesn't quite have that, so it's hard to teach a repertoire of athletic moves to someone who doesn't quite have the ceiling of athleticism.
Just sign him up for a gymnastics class for the entire summer.
Sure. Go outside the box. Hell, bring in ballet. Screw it.
Get him a little more flexible.
I mean, honestly, with Sadiq, it's going to be... I'm going to continue to hammer the shooting drills with Sadiq Bey because I do want him to be an elite level outside shooter. He's shown an ability to get there. He's just got to show the consistency because he does have a lot of off nights. I also want him.
James Edwards brought up on his podcast last week. He was saying, does Sadiq Bey have too much muscle? Maybe if he actually lost all the muscle, he might add some athleticism.
See, I'm actually going to say that I want him to use that muscle to his advantage. And what I mean I want him to bully people.
Oh, yeah.
He doesn't quite have the athleticism to do it, but maybe play a little bit of bully ball and put up a pump fake and then drive into the lane and bully people down low and get up a shot with some contact, get an and one, get to the line. Something along those lines, develop that type of move in his arsenal that he can pump fake at the 3-point line, dribble drive, and create contact. He doesn't necessarily have to pull out the most athletic move in the world, but he gets in the paint, draws some contact, gets to the line, gets an and one here and there. That becomes dangerous. Look at Luka Doncic. He's a perfect example of a guy who's really not that athletic. I mean, he's looking kind of beefy, but he bullies people.
He does.
And people have to respect him from outside, and they have to respect that dude's able to drive the ball.
Yeah, he can pretty much make it from anywhere. So
and he's able to drive on you as well, and he's got the moves in his arsenal to get by you and get to the lane, take the harm, and make the shot as well. And then he gets the line. If Sadiq can develop some type of semblance of that, the sky is quite literally the limit with that kid at that point. So I'm going to put him in a drill like that where I can get him comfortable making a move outside because people have to start respecting his outside shot and bullying people in the lane because he's got the size and he's got the muscle.
All right, let's talk about the Lions. So as we know, and we've already discussed, the Lions invested heavily in their offensive line in the draft by taking an insane talent in Penei Sewell to bolster that line. And they just made another giant move, which you've probably heard by now, but signing Frank Ragnow to a major extension that makes
much
him
deserved
the highest paid center in the league.
Much deserved, and he was going to be the highest paid center in the league, and he should be the highest paid center in the league as of this point.
I believe the contract was 4 years, around 70 mil in
Something
total.
along those lines.
Yeah. I think it's 42 mil in guarantees.
It just continues to hammer the philosophy that I believe the Lions should be doing, and clearly they believe they should be doing, which is building from the trenches and going out from there. And they're making it a point that they are going to have a premier offensive line. Like, it is going to be hammered into the heads of the league that this offensive line ain't no joke. It's not the pushover we saw for the last 15, 20 years with this team. This is a legitimate bully ball offensive line where they're not afraid to run the ball on you 25, 30, 35 times a game anymore. Mm-hmm. They will do it. And it will not be a fun game for your defensive line. I promise you that. Because Frank Ragnow's a big, nasty, strong, athletic, very solid technique offensive line. Like he in the middle he's a future All-Pro. I mean, I think you could see him hit All-Pro status as early as this year. And then you look at the left side of the line with Taylor Decker and Jonah Jackson. Jonah Jackson developed quite nicely last year. I look to see him take another step up, and Taylor Decker, very, very solid on the left side. And then you add Penei Sewell, who is a very nasty offensive lineman. Like, that dude straight hurts people. He bullied people. Bullied people in college. And I expect to see the same, especially off that edge on the right side this year. So you got a tough, nasty offensive line here in Detroit now, and it personifies. And I think the city's really going to like it because it really kind of personifies what this city's supposed to be all about.
Well, I think you already answered my question because I was going to ask you, is a center worth a $70 million investment? So
I think offensive linemen should be paid more than they are.
Yeah.
Wide receivers should not be paid as much as they are. They should flip-flop those contracts. Let me tell you right now.
Wide receivers are replaceable. It's only the elite tier that really you can't replace. But other than that,
offensive linemen are not easily replaceable. Just ask the Chiefs. And speaking of the Chiefs, did you see Eric Fisher just got a nice 1-year deal?
Yeah, just when we were giving them props for a good offensive line. But no, I agree with you though. It's about time that the Lions committed major money to this offensive line, and I'm really excited to see where it takes them. I remember I actually saw a graphic. I think it was on Twitter a few days ago, and it was more pertaining to the draft, but it was like a rough a drawing, like a 5-year-old drawing, like 5-year-old's drawing of just a stick figure, Jared Goff, quarterback, and then you have offensive line with like no names, just it says O line, and then it had a receiver out on the edge of the screen, and it said Pitts/Chase/Waddle. And then it had the ball falling like 10 yards short. And then they had another graphic. Instead of O-line, it said Sewell. And then it said anyone on the wide receiver, and it had the ball making it there.
I'll tell you right now, giving a quarterback more time in the pocket makes him way better than he actually is. You look at, actually a really good example, speaking of Eric Fisher, a really good example of a quarterback who's been able to play with a really good O-line and has gotten better or been better than, well, no, that's Tennessee. Just kidding. Tannehill's with Tennessee. But making a quarterback who really shouldn't be anywhere near as good as he was, even if he wasn't that good, in Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers probably should have been at home last year, but he was serviceable for Indianapolis, and a lot of that was thanks due to his offensive line. Well, they just added Eric Fisher to that offensive line. So you add in an All-Pro. Granted, he is coming off of a pretty serious injury, but you add in Eric Fisher to that offensive line. If he is healthy, they just got even better. Mm-hmm. And that's a team that's competing for championships. That's their philosophy. And you're now taking that same philosophy of using the trenches to your advantage and giving your quarterback as much time as he's going to need to find receivers. Because I'll tell you right now, I don't care who the cornerback is or the safety or the linebacker, and I don't care who the receiver is. Once they start having to try to cover these guys for 7, 8 seconds or 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, I don't care who the receiver is, they're getting open. It's a given in this league nowadays. You can't hold them, or there's going to be a penalty. I promise you. So you give Jared Goff time, and that's what this offensive line's built to do, and things will happen. Things will happen.
And that's how I've been talking about, like the impact on the run game. I mean, just going back to your Colts example, look at what Jonathan Taylor did once he was finally let loose in Week 10. Like I don't think he even had a game under 90 yards, like total offense. He went from people thinking, is he a is he going to be a bust to this is the future?
Right. Mm-hmm. And here's a sentence that I'm reading from an article from Colts.com. Indianapolis, and granted this is biased, but Indianapolis has had one of the league's top offensive line units the past 2+ seasons in Costanzo at left tackle, Quentin Nelson at left guard, who's probably the nastiest guard in the league, Ryan Kelly, center, Mark Lewinsky, right guard, and Braden Smith, right tackle. I am just ready to have the Lions, that name, be replaced in that sentence. Detroit has had one of the league's top offensive line units the past 2+ seasons. And the way that they're building it, I think it'll be. I think it will happen. Not that it could happen. I think it will happen. And when you have an offensive line that good, elite level, elite tier is the ceiling for you. Like, you can be better than you actually are because your quarterback is given time. Your running game is able to find holes that were never supposed to be there. A really good offensive line can make a bad running back look really good.
So, question.
Not saying our running backs are bad, because I think DeAndre Swift is awesome, and he's one of my favorites in fantasy football this year.
How high are you in DeAndre Swift going into the season with the way this offensive line's looking?
Very. I think you could be looking at a running back that could hit 1,000 yards rushing. I really do.
That makes me so happy.
I really do, because he's one, got the ability. Two, I think he's going to get the opportunity. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Lions are investing in this offensive line to throw the ball 60+ times a game. Mm-hmm. I think they're looking to run the ball quite a bit.
But speaking of this run game, something we should probably mention. So the Lions parted ways with Kerryon Johnson. It was actually met with some pushback in the Lions fan community. Do you think this was a premature move from the Lions' part, or do you like the move of cutting Kerryon Johnson?
I don't think Kerryon fits in the philosophy of what this team is going to be. I think if your philosophy was still to be, work with the short pass, because Kerryon has kind of relegated himself to a pass-catching back. Mm-hmm. And with DeAndre Swift also being a guy who can be a pass-catching back and wants the bell cow role and is embracing that role, Kerryon becomes kind of obsolete at that point. So where the Lions, I think, are looking at maybe a guy who can come in to be a change of pace back, and Kerryon's really not effective at doing that because he can't find the hole, and that's what you need to change pace back to do. Or a back who can be a bruiser, which Kerryon is not. He doesn't really fit into a role that we need in this backfield because Swift kind of takes away his role to an extent. So while I think Kerryon was given up on a little bit too early, I don't think he's able to, he's got the skill set to carve out a role in this system anymore. Mm-hmm. So I think he'll be just fine out in Philly. The
way I view it, I'd agree with you that I wouldn't even say he was given up on too early. Like for me, at least with my opinion on Kerryon, the ship had kind of sailed. But where I kind of disagree with it a bit is you're talking about a guy who's in the last year of a rookie deal. Like, I think we should have kept him around. Like, it wouldn't have hurt to keep him around just a depth piece for this year. What happens if Jamal Williams goes down? Like, you have no depth behind.
Not to mention Jamal Williams also makes him obsolete. But no, I 100% agree with you. What if DeAndre Swift needs to take a game off or two? Kerryon steps into that role. Or Jamal Williams steps. I agree with you 100% there. Is it can never hurt to have depth added to your backfield, and Kerryon would have been that depth.
And it's inexpensive. It's not like you're paying him a ton of money. It's the last year of a rookie deal. So
no, I agree with you. It would have made sense to keep him for another year, but maybe they want that roster spot elsewhere. Who knows?
Yeah, that's very true. Maybe they have a lot of faith in that 7th-round pick. I can't remember his name right now.
Neither can I. A lot of 7th-round picks don't make the roster. But either way, it's much deserved for Frank Ragnow to get this extension. He earned it by being one of the best centers in the league. It's a lot of money for a center, yes, but I have no issues with the Lions putting assets and putting their money into a position like that. I know it's not a skill position. I know it's not the quarterback, but regardless, it's a position that you have to have good to win. It's offensive line. If your offensive line's no good, you're not going to win.
Let's put it this way: if we ever wanted to overpay for a position, it's the O line or the D line. Like,
100% agree. 100% agree.
Mm-hmm. And especially a guy that's Frank Ragnow's age, where he still has a lot of time left in the league. He still has his whole career.
That's the best part about it.
Yeah,
that's the best part about it. Is he's extremely young. He's already really good, and this offensive line seems to be getting put together at a time where now a very large majority of that O-line is locked under contract for a long time. So they're going to get every bit of opportunity to be elite level in this league because they're going to play together for a long time. Taylor Decker's got, 4 more years on his deal after he was extended? Jonah Jackson's on now his 2nd year. So he's got a few more. Penei Sewell is a rookie, so he's got quite a few. So, and Vaitai, you just signed last offseason, so he's got a few more. So you're going to get plenty of opportunity to have this offensive line grow together. So you've got that locked in year 1 if you're Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. You locked in your offensive line for several years, year 1. That's a huge step forward because there's teams that are on year 7 that are still trying to figure out that O-line situation. Just go ask Seattle.
Yeah. They're starting off the wrong foot. This is going to be an expensive O-line to lock in fully, but all right. So they said they're on the right. Yeah. Did I say?
You said wrong foot.
Oh, why would I say wrong foot?
Maybe you're talking about Seattle. I don't know. But no, they're coming on the right foot, and like I said, this is going to be an expensive O-line to lock in fully. It's say, already locked in fully, though.
I'm saying once you talk about locking in Penei Sewell after his rookie deal.
Yeah, but he's got 5 years to get there.
Yeah.
I would imagine talking about a situation where you've got 3-4 years.
Give an extension before the 5 years.
Yeah, probably after year 3 or 4. But you're talking about a situation where every single piece of your O-line is now locked in and under contract for at least 3 years. Mm-hmm. That's a big deal.
Yeah,
that's enough time for Penei Sewell to grow. That's enough time for Jonah Jackson to grow and see where this line gets to. You get a real good glimpse after year 3 with this O-line and year 3 with this system and this coach and GM of what this team's going to be. And you started from day 1 already now having a very key part of the future of your franchise and the success of your franchise locked in and ready to go. So now you can focus on other positions. You can focus on linebackers, D-line, which you've already done, by the way. You can focus on wide receivers and quarterbacks and things like that. Because no matter what you plug in there, if it's on the offense, they're going to get a chance to succeed because that O-line is going to make sure it happens.
And then just in terms of the future, because obviously we're in the beginning stage of a rebuild here. If we're projecting 3 years out, again, I think if Jonah Jackson stays in the same trajectory he's on, and if Penei Sewell is anywhere near as good as advertised, you have your young core at the O-line set regardless. It's not like it's just contractually locked in. You have your young guys in the O-line set, assuming everything goes as planned there. Even if we did lose Taylor Decker in the next 3 years, you have your guys set, and that's where I take the most solace.
Absolutely, and I'm not gonna lie to you. It really starts to feel like we are in this city finally doing the rebuild the right way. And I'm not just keeping that hemmed in with the Lions. You look at the Pistons. We just talked about that rebuild and how they've virtually turned over completely and are on the way back up after 1 year. You look at the Red Wings. They're already on the turnaround after Stevie Y's come in and blown up that roster, brought in new pieces, got some young guys. You look at the Lions now. They've got their O-line set. You may have a quarterback in Jared Goff, and if not, well, you'll probably be bad enough to get your guy. You're on the, you're getting there.
Yeah.
And then you have the Tigers who are in year 5 of their rebuild. The guy's been here the longest, and they ain't doing shit.
It's
the new guys.
It's the annoying part of this whole thing is, let's just talk the Pistons, for example. They've dilly-dallied with this rebuild since 2010.
For 10 years.
And it took one guy 1 year to come in and get us further along in a rebuild than we got in 10 years prior.
Come in at the right time when certain money was coming off the books. You could afford to buy out Blake Griffin. It came in at the right time. But yes, he did it in 1 year. And it goes to show that sometimes a change of who's pushing the buttons and making the moves can make a big difference.
Yeah, it's the same thing you saw in
Chris
Lions.
Illich, Alavila, please make something happen there.
As soon as we got rid of, I don't even want to say their names anymore, and brought in Brad Campbell and Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell.
I was just going to let it slide. I didn't even notice it.
Again, the difference, not even a year, one offseason has made already for the Lions. It's incredible.
Positive times coming here with the Detroit sports teams, at least 3 of them anyways. Before we close things out, I had one question I wanted to ask you. Pick one team that is the closest to winning a playoff game in this town. Who is it? Obviously, you have a choice of 3 here because one of which ain't anywhere close, and they ain't going to be close in the next 2, 4, 5 years. But pick one team.
It's the Red Wings. It's the Red Wings. The Pistons and the Lions are still in the earliest stages of rebuild, but it's really promising first steps of that rebuild. Whereas I think it's just based on, I think the Red Wings are further along than the other two are. I'm not saying the Red Wings are close to winning a playoff game by any stretch of the imagination, but
I actually think the Wings are only a couple of years off from it. But I'll agree with you. It's the Red Wings.
Now, if the Pistons land Cade Cunningham, I might be inclined to change my mind.
I still would say it's the Red Wings because normally guys like that still take a couple of years to fully develop and become what you want them to be. But I think I'll agree. It is the Red Wings. They seem to be furthest along in the rebuild. Granted, they've also had the most time to get the rebuild together. I mean, I believe they've got an extra year with Stevie Y, so who knows what the Lions and Pistons will look like at this time next year. But they seem to be the team that's closest to. I will say, though, my dark horse is the Lions.
Really?
Yes, and the reason I say that is because the impact that an elite tier offensive line can have on a team, plus you added a lot of depth on the D-line and a lot of talent there. That's 2 of the biggest impactful positions in the field. And if Jared Goff is able to actually return to what he was in LA.
Does wild card game count?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, anyway, because the only argument I was going to have there is I just also feel that winning a single playoff game in the NFL feels like a bigger hurdle than in the NBA or in the NHL.
Yeah, but I mean, the wild card game counts.
Yeah, the wild card game counts. That helps a little bit. Yeah.
It's the playoffs.
It's the play-in tournament count in the NBA.
Ooh, I don't know. Are they actually going to continue that? I'm not going to lie to you. I love it.
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Like
I personally like next year, like after this.
Oh,
year.
next year. Oh, I have no idea.
Okay, I personally actually really like it because in all reality, the 7 and 8 teams are dumpster fires to begin with, especially in the last 5 years. So having them earn their spot to be there, I like it. I'm not going to lie, I actually like it. Who cares what LeBron says? But either way.
I'd rather have teams that are surging late and have some promise in the playoffs where they're in teams that kind of back themselves into the 8th spot, and reeling and just this season ended just in time, and then they just get pounced in the playoffs.
Yep, 100% agree. I do not like teams that back into the playoffs. But the reason I say the Lions is because if Jared Goff's able to return to what he was in his Pro Bowl year, and you have that offensive line, DeAndre Swift takes a step up, that offense could look pretty damn good. And the defense might just be good enough. We'll find out. But they're my dark horse just because of that. I don't think they have the talent to get there, though. Nothing against the Pistons. I just don't think they have anything that puts them in that could potentially put them in the elite tier just yet. Whereas the Lions do. And but again, it is, in my opinion, still the Wings. I think they're the closest to for sure.
Yeah, a lot of that hinges for the Pistons, at least on this draft for me. And
yes, 100%.
In the next couple weeks here, we're going to start getting the Pistons draft talk, which is pretty much my favorite part of Pistons talk is when we finally get into draft season.
I mean, it's like the Lions, being a Lions fan every year. The draft day is your Super Bowl.
Draft talk is like playoff talk when you're a rebuilding team.
Oh, man. All right, anything else, Dad?
That's all I got.
All right, that's going to close it off for this week, guys. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week. Thank you, Andrew, for joining me. Thank you to Detroit Sports Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at RealFanReport, and we will catch you guys next week. Have a good week, the rest of your week and weekend. This has been the Fan Reporters. Bye, fans.
For fans.
We'll catch you guys next week. Have a good one. Peace out.
Peace.